Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Getting Started with HR Service Delivery. We have a lot of content to cover, so we're going to get started right away, but this recording will be available, and we'll talk about that here momentarily as well. Let me get going. We'll start off with our safe harbor notice. So very quickly, we may or may not talk about things that will happen in the future. And if we do talk about things that will happen in the future, there's no guarantee they will actually happen. It's just our intent that we're sharing with you. So do not make buying decisions based on things that have not been delivered. So we have a lot of webinars. Our Live on ServiceNow team produces webinars across all of our ServiceNow products. The QR code on the right will link you to a whole list of events. We'll also share some links as we go through this presentation about different resources, including other webinars. So please, do attend these webinars. We produce them for your benefit, and we hope that you'll find a lot of great information when you do. We're hoping you'll get some great information out of today's webinar as well. A few things, a few rules here, if we will. So first, we did save some time at the end. We're hoping to highlight some questions and answers that have been given throughout this presentation. There is a Q&A button on your screen, so please use that. That allows us to track all the questions and respond to them appropriately, as well as it gives us an opportunity to come back later in the session and highlight them. You will not be able to come off mute during this session, so we strongly suggest using the Q&A panel. Do not use chat for questions. If you use chat, we may or may not catch those as we go. Presentation will be recorded. It will be shared on the ServiceNow community. We do try to post all of our webinars out on there, both for your review in the future as well as for those who cannot attend today. We want to give them the resources as well. And then after the event, there is a short survey. Please give us your feedback. We always love to know what we're doing well and what we can do better. So as we move forward and continue to do these webinars, we're constantly improving. So thank you for feedback. I'm Rue Adams. I'm an outbound product manager in ServiceNow in our employee workflows division. This includes our HR service delivery products. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'm trying every day. And I'm here with Michael Sheridan. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Rue. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Sheridan. I'm from the product success team here at ServiceNow within the employee workflows business unit. My title is product success technical director. So essentially, I provide leading practices, guidance to customers and partners as they're deploying or they're carrying on their journey with HR service delivery. So thank you, Rue.
Thanks, Michael. So quick agenda, we will be covering implementing HRSD. We'll have some overview content as we go. The elements of HRSD, what are the capabilities and applications that make up HRSD, both the core applications as well as some of the applications that kind of extend functionality in the HR space. We'll talk some about HR experience, employee experience. How are the employees engaging with your HR teams? How are your HR teams engaging with each other? We'll talk about next steps, recommendations, and resources, because we hope this is the start of your journey and you'll continue on with us. This is just a great way to sort of get some introduction and some overview, and then start making a real headway into your HR practice. And then we'll hopefully have a few minutes at the end to do some Q&A review, share some of the best questions and answers that you can all take and use as you go forward. So we have a poll question. We're going to launch that here very quickly. And the question is, what is the most used feature of HRSD within your organization? And if you're not currently using HRSD, what are you planning to use in the future when you do implement HRSD? And not unexpectedly, a lot of folks are in the case management and knowledge management, employee center, all pretty much equal. I understand that. Those are really I think the core applications. And then a few of you are saying all of the above, and that's really for our viewpoint, that's really kind of the thing we all strive for, which is we think those three applications work best together, and that we our customers get the most value when they're using case, knowledge, and employee center holistically. So with that, we'll move on. But thank you, and we really appreciate knowing where you're at. So this webinar is going to cover hopefully a lot of material. It's not going to cover everything about HR service delivery. We don't have the time for that, but we do have other resources available that are accessible 24/7, 365, as they say. One of those is our HR service delivery welcome guide out on the ServiceNow community. We strongly encourage you to go out to the ServiceNow community and really begin or continue your journey in that community. I'm out there. Michael, I know you're out there. Many of our internal resources are there. Our partners go out there. Your peers from other companies go out there. They ask questions, they answer questions, they post resources. It's a great place to share our knowledge to you, as well as you sharing your knowledge with each other. So I strongly recommend engaging with the ServiceNow community whenever you can. With that, Michael, I think I'm handing it over to you to talk about implementation of HRSD.
Thanks, Rue. So we'd like to start with this slide because we're really building the foundation for our implementation. And there are some things that I would imagine go without saying that we have to cover in order to be successful. So I'm a man of analogy, so I like to use examples on a lot of things. So as we traverse through this slide, I'll probably use a lot of analogies. But for all intents and purposes, it's like the basement. We're building the basement to house our house upon. So we want that foundation to be strong. In doing so, when we're talking about implementing HR service delivery, we want that strong foundation. So you may ask, well, Mike, what is that strong foundation? It's definitely starting with the vision. What does the company envision our HR service delivery looking like? What are our success measures that we're going to measure against to indicate that it was a successful implementation? So there's a lot of vision and value that go into it. What is our vision? What's the value we're going to get out of it? As well as some of the other things that are foundational to a successful implementation. What are we going to deploy? So are we going to phase in the applications? A lot of customers will have the whole gamut of HR service delivery, the enterprise SKU, but choose to implement case of knowledge to address a larger issue where we're not tracking, we're not securing, we're doing our HR service delivery through spreadsheets and email, and is not really an efficient way or a way to share information or secure information. So what are we deploying? Are we going to deploy everything? Are we going to phase in applications? It's a good place to start because then you're starting from a strong foundation and moving forward. The next thing that's important is the implementation roles. Who's the executive sponsor? Who are the key decision makers that are going to be part of these meetings or workshops that's going to drive requirements or that's going to decide on requirements? So an important role. The next is governance, and certainly we need governance. A lot of times we've done deployments and we have a squeaky wheel in the room where one individual or one group is articulating all the requirements without a lot of buy-in from the rest of the team. So having that governance to say, what is the business case for this requirement or customization? Is it something the business wants to take on? If it's a customization, are we going to take on that technical debt? Or if it's a configuration, is it scalable for our business growing forward? Organizational change management essential to a successful implementation, as well as the skills and expertise. Do we have, as a customer, do we have the skills in-house to deploy HR service delivery? Typically, we encourage customers to go with a services partner, to engage those resources that are familiar with the application, familiar with implementations, and really can help implement smoothly. And then project planning goes without saying. The last thing I'll say about this slide is the assets that we offer. So we have Now Create, we have our product documentation, we have, as Rue mentioned earlier, the community where you could get information or ask questions in order to help give some future sight for customers maybe that have done a similar requirement and you just want some insight before you actually implement. So another important part of your implementation is definitely those foundational elements, but then gathering the materials that are needed, i.e. Now Create our product documentation so that you can have the information needed as you move forward. You know, we read the release notes, we understand what the application does from the prior version, important in a successful implementation. So very good to be successful in following these guidelines. Okay, so the second part is of our implementation is validating and operationally how we're going to support this. So a lot of times I'm involved with the implementation one way or another, and the question comes up, well, who is going to do our customizations or advanced configurations within HR service delivery? We only have our HR team that are agents and fulfillers. We don't have that more advanced user within our organization. So those type things have to be worked through so operationally you can support the application, whether if it's configurations to accommodate the changing of the business or whether if it's customizations to accommodate a unique requirement. It's important to understand who are the people for those run roles, who are the service owners, who are the people that are going to be maintaining those HR services in case something changes. Who's going to be the admin for HR service delivery? And then platform health. When we have things that we need to look at, who is going to be involved with the platform health? If we're looking at things like performance or executing reports, who are those resources? And then demand management. What's going to be our intake for enhancements, for changes? We need to give our community a voice so they feel like they have insight on how to better the application. We have to have a process in place in order to field those intakes from our community. And then enhancements. Our business is changing daily, so we may need to enhance the product in order to accommodate for those business changes. How are we going to accommodate that? What is going to be our process? What's the governance around any enhancements? What are the business needs? And then upgrades. What is the HR role in upgrade of the platform? I've seen instances where IT, HR, and other departments sit on the same platform, and one wants to upgrade to get some new features where other business units on the platform are a little more latent, where they want to soak in some more of the functionality before they upgrade. So those type decisions have to be made as well, because we want to stay as current as possible in order to get the features, performance enhancements, or anything else that we do to enhance the product. And then assessing value. It's always a continual process to improve. So how are we assessing our HR service delivery? How are we assessing performance? How are we assessing feedback from users or user sentiment? So important things to know as we're deploying, so you could be in the right place and have all these foundational, these operational items worked through as you go through your implementation. So the last thing I'll say here is that it's important for all of these theoretical elements to be in place. You know, what is our vision? How are we going to get there? And operationally, how are we going to support? Three key elements to be thinking about as you move forward.
Hey, Michael, before we leave the slide, I just want to make one key point, I think, which just sort of aggregates everything you've said. So a lot of companies that I've worked with, been part of, consulted with at various times, we get to the point where we make the big project plan, we launch ServiceNow HRSD, our case workers are using agent workspace, our employees are reading knowledge through the employee portal. All of that was great. We got there, we got to launch day, we all celebrated, it was wonderful. and now people are starting to use it. When you launch, that's the beginning of your work, right? Every day you go in, you need to sustain all of this work that you've done to make sure that the employees continue to find value, that the agents continue to be successful, helping the employees in your company. So while all this planning is great, we have a big project plan, we execute on launch day. You've got to continue. You've got to make sure that that knowledge is up to date and things are happening. So just something I wanted to sort of set the expectation around. And I think this slide starts to talk to that, which is, it's a daily piece of work.
Absolutely. So there's a question that came up that I'll answer live when we get to the next two slides. I think it's appropriate, so it's a good foreshadowing with the question, but I'll answer once we get to those slides. So I'll keep it in queue for now. So this slide here, and I won't go into great details of all the features and functionality that is listing in each swim lane, but there's a progression that we publish, and that's a foundational swim lane, if you will. And then there's a crawl, walk, run, and then fly. Fly being the tip of the iceberg where we're doing everything. We're at operational excellence. Our instance is performing well. We're getting good adoption from products. The reason why we depict this slide is because customers coming from a spreadsheet HR service delivery mechanism, sometimes going to the fly swim lane can be overwhelming. There's a lot of features and functionality. There's Gen AI, there's machine learning, there's automation, these things that we're introducing that we're finding can be overwhelming for customers. So typically we see those type customers phasing in applications. So we go live with HR case and knowledge management in the foundational element, and then we're starting to crawl. We're introducing things like agent workspace or anonymous report center, and then we're progressing. We start to walk. So we're introducing things like life cycle events, journey designer, where we're automating, where we're giving a better experience, but we're not overwhelming. So you could get the idea of what we're depicting here with this slide to show typically when customers are in that foundational stage, the applications or the features, functions that they're implementing at that point. So we definitely want all of our customers to be in the fly mode. We want you at the tip of the iceberg, but sometimes it's a longer journey to get there. So this just gives a good idea of where customers are successful in implementing new features and functionality or even applications as they progress from just the foundational state. Next slide. So what can HR service delivery do for your organization? Starting off is HR case management. So for customers that are coming from a more archaic way of doing HR service delivery, case management allows you to standardize. So we have a record identifying this request, issue, whatever the case may be. We could prioritize, we can assign, we could get it into the right skill, we could run service level agreements, we could run metrics to understand how we're meeting against our service level agreements. So case management is the way that we could put everything together in order to formally track any requests that we have for HR service delivery. Knowledge management is an icing on the cake, meaning that we could use knowledge management to standardize documentation. If we're releasing policies for vacation, if we're releasing policies for behavior, things of that nature, we could standardize. So it's not word of mouth, it's not tribal knowledge. These are documents that are reviewed and approved so we could release to the community. So from an information perspective, more from a self-help, we could get the information needed. And then more from a self-service or even a deflection standpoint, we could use knowledge to provide information or insights that's going to deflect a case or another application record for that matter. And then thirdly, we have the Employee Center Pro. And this is really our gateway to providing the experience for employees. So it's the multi-departmental a portal or the gateway for our employees. So it may be an IT request, an HR request, facilities, workplace. We could all put them on the same unified portal in order to give a better experience. Along with that, and the last thing I'll mention, at least on this slide, is that we can deliver content. So we could deliver an experience based on configurations rather than customizations. So moving on to point 4, HR profiles. This is the key element of our HR service delivery. Not only does it store key employee information, but can also store more PII type data. So it may be a situation where we want to store the employee's birth date because we want to send out a birthday campaign to all employees that have their birthday that's within a week. So we do that by way of the HR profile. One thing I'll mention, and probably getting too technical for just the getting started webinar, is that the HR profiles are required for an employee when they're consuming our HR services. We have situations where we have a unified portal and we have contractors that are just working IT, where we would not want an HR profile for them. We have other elements to store employee information. We call that the employee profile, which is separate from an HR profile. HR profile specific to HR service delivery, the employee profile agnostic to one department or business unit. It's across the platform. For number 5, we have our COE tables and HR services. So our COE tables are our centers of excellence, benefits, payroll. We have different tables to accommodate for different use cases that customers may have. It's a way to separate different data points being on different tables. And then our HR services, which are really the heartbeat of what we're doing with HR service delivery. It's stating what service we offer. It's going to state what SLA we have, and then it's going to facilitate automation. And then number 6, we have our HR agent workspace. And this is our interface to give a uniform look and feel for all of our agents. It's more standardizing the interface instead of one agent configuring it way differently than another agent, and sometimes it causes confusion. So Agent Workspace standardizes that interface. It offers things that are more of an enhancement. So what I'll mean is by in shadowing some of the agents I've seen in the past with customers, they tend to tab all of their browser tabs, where now we allow that within the workspace. So if I have multiple cases open, I could have different tabs within the application to represent each of those cases to toggle between them. So it's more around efficiency and standardization. So moving on to step 7, essential to HR service delivery are our roles, security, and access. It's sensitive data within HR, and we want to make sure that it's secure. It's in a scoped application. We want to make sure that the people with the scoped role are the people that we want to see HR data. The people without that scope role can only see their own data. Being an employee is an example. I have no fulfiller role. I'm not able to see other data within the HR service delivery application. And then dashboards and reporting. We want to know how we're doing operationally against our SLAs, against our CSAT, so we can define how many cases are being created, how fast are we closing them using dashboards and reporting, which are essential for our operations. And then lastly on this slide, before I get into the live question, was integrations. And this is our method for automation and then leveraging the system of record. So many of our customers are using HCMs like Workday, SuccessFactors, PeopleSoft in order to feed their employee population into ServiceNow. The purpose is that the system of record is updating ServiceNow to keep that information as accurate as possible with that direct feed or direct integration with the HCM. So before we move on to the next slide, I'll answer one of the questions that came up. So the question is how is case management different from incident management? And when would an end user create a case versus an incident? And any quick example. And an example would be HR case is different from incident because it's a different functional area. An incident is more around IT functions. I can't log into my desktop. I need a new mouse. Those are type things that would be IT related. HR related is I need more information on my benefits. I have a new child that was born. I need to know what's covered at the hospital, or things like employee relations where, somebody was harassing me and I need to report it. They're now, I get to the point to where I don't want to come to work because I feel like I'm being harassed. So I need to be able to report that somewhere. And that's the main difference. But the security side of it is when I report something, we need to limit who's able to see that. The example may be Rue and I are on the same team. We both may work employee relations cases, but I had harassed Rue and he feels uncomfortable and wants to report it. Well, we don't want that ER case for me to see it. So we secure that from the person who is not reporting, who's not the complainant. So just to give an example of where HR is separate from incident management, we've had customers in the past have worked with HR in the global scope and had challenges in trying to secure that. A lot of ACLs, a lot of custom workflow in order to secure it that added more overhead than they were comfortable with. So we scoped the application to separate the data in order to secure it with those scoped roles. And hopefully that gave the example as well. So we'll move on to the next slide. So getting into more details on HR case and knowledge management, starting with some highlights. So enhanced efficiency. As a business, we want all of our workers to be efficient, and we want to give them the tools and applications to be successful. And we do that with HR case management, along with knowledge management and any other application with HR service delivery for that matter. But I mentioned earlier about the standardization of the HR agent workspace is just one example of how we're trying to make agents more efficient, putting more information in front of them where they don't have to execute separate queries, open separate browser tabs to search different areas of the application. We centralize that using HR agent workspace. The goal is trying to enhance efficiency. The next highlight is easily share relevant information. So we could do things like sharing a knowledge article or pulling other agents into the conversation using the sidebar as part of a chat to help with a case. It may be an SME that's more proficient with how our payroll works than I'm able to answer. So we could easily share that information, sidebar being one of them, knowledge, out to the employee. And then improving service delivery. So we have our service level agreements, operational level agreements, and we're trying to track our targets through dashboards and reports. So we want continual improvement. So we're doing well against our SLAs. Can we improve? We're doing well against our CSATs. How can we improve? How can we identify the areas where we can improve? Dashboards and reports will help improve our service delivery. And then lastly, we want to protect the employee privacy. So we want to strengthen the case confidentiality by using things like the COE security, where we can restrict cases. It's scoped application and we lock it down to only those scope roles. So essentially, we're protecting the employee privacy just by being in a scoped application, along with all the other things like the COE security policies that we could use to further secure based on a configuration without having to use code. So here we just give the agent view of a case. This is within the workspace that I mentioned earlier. And here we log into the home page and we have some dashboards that are going to allow the agent to do their job more efficiently. So what SLAs are at risk? What high priority cases do we have to gain focus? And here we color coded them to emphasize. On the right-hand image, you can see where we're consolidating all that information. So I have the at a glance. I could add data points if needed to show more information on the employee. Are they a VIP? Where are they located? What was their employment start date? When is their employment end date? Any key point that we store in order to make a better experience for the agent. Because again, we're trying to improve efficiency. And here you can see where I have a lot of elements at my fingertips. I can see other tasks that are related. I can see any emergency contacts, any cases that they have opened for them. So again, just trying to be efficient in case management with the improved agent workspace for the HR agent. Knowledge management is a key way for us to deflect, provide information in policies, in knowledge base articles. And what we have here is just an admin view of what that looks like. We have features like templates that we can use. We have a versioning functionality for most customers that want to version articles and be able to see what was changed from article to article. The purpose here is to standardize our policies, our knowledge for customers to share based on those roles or any of those attributes that you have within the applications or within the platform. Example may be that I want to show any new hire type documentation or knowledge articles for a new hire. So I'm going to use a user criteria that this person is a new hire. Whereas I may want to hide the new hire information for employees and provide employees knowledge articles that are specific to their role or any attribute that we're tracking within the application. So knowledge management is a great way to do that. The last thing I'll say with knowledge management is a key way that we can deflect, that we could provide better user experience by providing more information. Again, it just goes into the effort that we put in to authoring those knowledge articles. We did have before we go to the next slide, we did have a question that came in. It looks like it's being typed in now. The difference between agent workspace and agent workspace is the same as what incident HR case management has. So we do have a workspace for operations, the service operations workspace, that's separately from the HR agent workspace. So typically, if you're working HR, you're in the HR agent workspace realm for the lists and the additional information it provides, like response templates, fulfillment instructions. So there are different interfaces for an incident agent, if you will, than an HR agent. One using the HR agent workspace, the other using the service operations workspace. The next question is, could you talk about localizing an HR service delivery employee center portal where the org operates in multi-region and localization is mandatory? I'll speak to this at more of a high level. So we have our localization based on configurations, meaning that we have tables for localization, like messages, fields, labels, etc., where we translate. For the portal, it's a little more involved, but for all intents and purposes, we have things like dynamic translations where we could localize within the portal. We have customers that have asked about localizing just one application related to another. Oh, with incident, we don't want to localize, but HR we do. Localization is across the platform. So by and large, there are methods that we could use for localization, and getting more in detail is a little bit out of scope for a general HR case management introduction, but definitely we could follow up with more information on just scoping in the portal if that was the question. And then lastly, before we move on, do you have any best practice or any baseline SLA recommendations or best practices. Generally, we recommend to evaluate what you're trying to measure. What we see is a lot of customers are creating a lot of SLAs that just gets confusing, meaning that they're putting SLAs on elements lower than just an HR service and causing a lot of SLAs to be attached to a case where we see really isn't necessary. So it's something that we could probably take a step back and put the SLA against the COE or even the HR service. So the recommendation is really to evaluate what you're trying to measure, what service level or operational level agreement that you're trying to meet, and configure accordingly. It's a matter of not trying to boil the ocean where you're trying to get too detailed and you're confusing the issue, or you're skewing the metrics, if you will. So start simple and then build on what you have based on what your requirements are around service level agreements.
Hey, Michael, can I just add to that?
Absolutely.
I've been doing a lot of work with customers recently, and some of them have actually, established a 3-day SLA or a 5-day SLA for all HR cases. Those of us who work in HR also realize that there's a lot of complexity in HR that doesn't necessarily exist in other parts of the business. A case where maybe I just need to update my password for an HR system for access would be a lot different SLA than I want to move to another country and work in another country for my company, right? Which might be a multi-week or multi-month process to get work visas, to transfer, to move all my worldly goods into another country. So SLAs are difficult, I think, more complex potentially. But I do like the recommendation, Michael, that you start simply and then build from there, and just understand that there's going to be some variation in SLAs, maybe for one HR service than a different HR service.
Absolutely. Well said. So moving on with HR roles and security, and the purpose of this slide is just to show you the out-of-box groups that we get. And typically, most, if not all of these groups are applying a permission set. So typically, if I give an employee relations group membership, I'm applying the employee relations view and write role, scoped role, along with that group membership. So it's an easy way to maintain our membership in roles rather than trying to do that at the role level. So groups is a way to append the roles and have them inherited to the user. So the reason why I brought up this slide is to give you a good idea of what we have out of the box in terms of HR groups that are used for assignment, that are used for permissions within the application. HR services, I mentioned earlier, are the heartbeat of what we're doing in HR service delivery. So this is where we configure our automation. This is where we configure any variables or any data points that we want to apply to a case. This is where we could add additional functionality, like using case options to fulfill some automation. The reason why I talk to HR services is because it is the heartbeat, but it's important to structure our HR services in the manner that facilitates our business needs. We've had situations where I've seen customers are slicing and dicing HR services to say, well, this account notification is how we do it in US. This account notification HR service is how we do this in EMEA. This other account notification HR service is how we do this in APJ, representing 3 different HR services for essentially the same HR service that we're providing to the organization. The reason I mention that is because we have things that we could do for the HR service to do different things based on different regions. So fulfillment instructions, where I could put conditions to say when it's an EMEA employee, these fulfillment instructions would apply. So HR services, another like SLAs, where it's good to start off with the services that we provide and then build on that as the business grows. It may be a situation where the business changes and we provided an HR service in a certain way, and now that certain way has changed. Well, it's a configuration, so it gives you a lot of flexibility to reconfigure based on your use case instead of, historically where you would have wrote code to do that. So HR services, if anything that you can take away from this slide, is the heartbeat of HR service delivery and allows us to configure the way in which we fulfill our HR service.
Hey, Michael, there was a question around domain separation. I was wondering if you could answer that.
Yes. So does HR service delivery domain separation, or is it domain separated? A couple domains, companies in our instance may need HR service delivery, but other domains may not. Or do we control that through roles and security? HR service delivery from a data perspective supports domain separation. From a advanced configuration perspective, it does not. So we can't have company A configure their own lifecycle events and assignments and things of that nature separately from company B doing their own configurations within the application. We could have a centralized administration and then domain separate the data, but the HR service delivery application itself is not 100% domain separated for those reasons I gave earlier.
And can we just add that targeting is available, right? So you can say, hey, I have an employee in one group within one company, and you can give them information specific to that company versus a different company. It's just the functionality itself is centralized.
Absolutely. And just on that note, we see a lot of companies that are looking towards domain separation, but more trying to segregate like fulfillment of cases between different regions. And that's what we can use the COE security policies for. So if it's a matter that we're all working payroll, but we want to segregate EMEA payroll from AMS payroll, we could do that through COE security configurations to keep those fulfillment tasks separate and that data segregation separate, to where EMEA is not seeing AMS cases and AMS case are not being seen by EMEA resources. So the next item is the HR dashboards. I could say a lot about these, but it's really how we're going to track how we're doing against our operational excellence, meaning that are we tracking against SLAs? Are we providing a good service based on feedback? So our dashboards and reports are going to facilitate that for us. Next slide, please. Moving on to Employee Center Pro. So some of the highlights for Employee Center. So it's definitely to enhance the employee experience. Employee Center is our gateway into an employee's view into the company. So we want to make that the best experience as possible. So enhancing the employee experience is what we typically do with Employee Center, or our main marketing is to enhance the employee experience. We also support the hybrid workforce from anywhere. So we can transform how work gets done. So whether if that's multi-channel, whether if I'm accessing from mobile or on the mobile browser, and it's cross-departmental, so I can engage IT on the same unified portal as if I want to engage on HR type topics. And then we're connecting employees in moments that matter. Somebody's going to be on maternity leave next week. We could provide content that's specific to them getting ready to go on leave. Are you ready? Here's some things that you need to think about. We can deliver that content based on any of the attributes that we hold within ServiceNow or are fed from any integration. So if anything is taken from this slide, and the last thing I'll say about this slide is that Employee Center is really the gateway to the experience that we want to deliver to employees, alumni, and new hires. So we like to use Employee Center Pro as the employee destination site. So we have a lot of customers that are using Employee Center Pro as their intranet because of the capabilities like actionable target campaigns. So I could push out campaigns that are actionable. You need to, download your W-2 because it's January and it's tax time, as an example. And then we consolidate tasking across the platform. So if I have approvals for some IT processes, I can approve those within the portal, as well as if I have any HR approvals that I need to approve, maybe for a case like onboarding. This employee is getting this certain type of service. It needs to be approved. I could approve all those in the portal, agnostic to one application. And then lastly, again, we're engaging employees with the communities, with the people search, news, and then events. An example would be for a new hire, I may show them events on here's where your orientation day one is going to be. For employees, I could put the annual, summer roast or barbecue that we're going to have. So last thing I'll mention is that these are just some of the things that we provide with Employee Center Pro in delivering that unified portal to deliver the experience. And then we have the curated experience based on the unified taxonomy. So taxonomy is really essentially like a categorization that we set up for Employee Center. And this is how we could bucket all of our employee experience items into the employee taxonomy and then allow ownership and edit permissions within that taxonomy. So we keep HR separate from IT, IT separate from facilities. And some of the ways we do that is through the homepage. You can see these popular items, dynamic topic pages that we could have within the taxonomy, and we can review all of the content within a dynamically created topic page to give all of the items that I can select from based on the topic. And then lastly, a content page. We could deliver a specific piece of content as like through a dynamic topic page, a microsite, etc. Again, just to enhance the experience. And then delivering those targeted actionable communications. The example would be somebody's going on leave. I want to be able to show them that we know that. Or they're a veteran and it's Veterans Day. I want to show them some appreciation for their service. Just some of the things that we could do to enhance the employee experience, again, through these actionable targeted communications. And then how do we implement Employee Center Pro? And it's a lot of the same ways that we implemented HR service delivery. We start with that vision and value, foundational services. How are we going to accomplish that? Implementation roles, who are going to be the decision makers? So all of those same items, definitely governance, and then leveraging our assets in Now Create in our product documentation. And then lastly, how are we going to support this operationally? What are our run roles? How are we going to accommodate enhancements, upgrades? So implementing Employee Center Pro, we have documentation on more details where how physically tangible we're going to move from or move to the Employee Center. Theoretically, it's putting the vision, getting the assets we need to be successful, and then having our plan for operational runtime. So some of the things that we have to get even more information out there to you is the Employee Center Academy. So I'll give a few seconds that we have the QR code that you can scan in order to get more information. The next session is August 21st at 9 Pacific time. And we cover a gamut of different topics, and we have listed what we've covered in the past. I would strongly recommend that you participate in these Employee Center Academy sessions in order to gain more enablement around Employee Center specifically. Next slide, please. Additional help that we provide within Employee Center. So again, the Employee Center Academy, we have a deployment office hours. It's the last Tuesday of the month at 9 Pacific. We have an Employee Center Confidential Roadmap webinar, Employee Center Customer Show and Tell webinar, where a customer will walk through their implementation. And then on the community, we have the Employee Center Product Hub. I would recommend that you join that community so you could follow along with the blogs, with the articles, in order to enable yourself on Employee Center Pro topics.
So, Michael, I think I'm taking over from you right now on these slides. One thing I did want to say again, just because this question came up, this session will be posted out on the ServiceNow community. So you'll be able to review and see the slides again and click the QR codes and whatever else you need to do in a few days. I know the Live on ServiceNow team tries to get that done very quickly after each event, but there are a lot of events. So give it a few days and go out on the community. It should be out there. Okay, so which features will be most beneficial for your organization? And the answer may be all of them, of course, and we kind of hope that's the case. But yeah, we definitely want to talk a little bit about case management, giving you a centralized workspace, maybe getting all of your cases out of email. Some of the customers I've worked with have been doing email case ingest and unstructured cases, and they don't know really how many. They just kind of have a feel for it. Obviously, getting into a centralized managed location for ingest of all your cases is going to be beneficial. You definitely want to be able to track and report out on what you're doing in that case management space as well. And to collaborate, as Michael said, and share amongst caseworkers, maybe what's the best way to resolve certain types of cases and doing those more efficiently. Knowledge really enabling your employees as well as your caseworkers and others to self-help and self-serve. Maybe instead of having to open a case, they're able to do all the work themselves. Centralizing and sustaining that knowledge. Again, Michael had mentioned tribal knowledge. I worked in a lot of HR departments where you have to go to one specific person who knows the process, get them to document that process and share it so that we all know how to do it. Governance, making sure things are up to date, current, no broken links, information is relevant. I've also had the experience of working places where some of the published information is 5 to 10 years old, and that's on an intranet somewhere, and that's not helpful either, because employees, even if the information is still accurate, employees are going to start doubting that it's accurate if it's 5 years old. And then getting the feedback and being able to respond to employee feedback or other feedback about a knowledge article. Is a link broken because the downstream website has changed or something of that nature. And then sending out notifications. Hey, you have an article that's set to expire. You want to go and review that article, and having that notification come automatically is very helpful. Michael has just covered Employee Center Pro, a lot of benefits there, the curated experiences, right? I get information different from what Michael receives because of my role, because of my location, etc. Maybe there's something special going on in Seattle that isn't happening in Chicago or vice versa, and I need to know that. That's going to be critical. Building those content experiences. Hey, it's going to be open enrollment season soon, being able to send that campaign so employees can update their benefits. And then the integration, like the single sign-on app launcher. How great is it that I can go out and when I need to access a tool, maybe my Workday implementation or something else, I can just click and launch that app and actually be authenticated into Workday, where I can do certain activities or functions within another application. And then enterprise search, having that sort of federated search where, I can be searching the internet, searching on knowledge articles, and just searching kind of the corporate ecosystem holistically is a great benefit. So we're going to launch another poll question here. You feel free to, again, this one you can type into chat if you'd like. There are a lot of capabilities we've discussed today. Are any of them sort of appealing to you as an audience? Is there something that you say, that's what I really want to do or use? That's really going to help my company move forward. And we'll leave that poll open. I'm going to go ahead and move on, but if we can leave that poll open, let's let some folks type their answers. That would be great. Next steps, recommendations, and resources. So as we're getting ready to wrap here in the next few minutes, I just wanted to say there's high level. I think yeah, you're going to want to start planning. What are your business outcomes? What are you trying to achieve? Is it better employee experience? Is it fewer cases? Is it fewer cases of a certain type? Definitely defining those business outcomes, what you want to achieve at a higher level. Then determining your scope. How are we going to get there? What are the things that are going to make us better at getting to our business outcomes, our business goals? And then how are we going to measure our progress? So knowing your KPIs, knowing your success measures is going to help you there. And then having a rollout plan. What are you doing and who's doing that work and when is it going to get done at a high level? That's really critical. I would just add to that, what's the operational plan? Who's doing that work later? I had a number of customers in the past say, "Oh, well, we did all this work to launch our employee portal with all this knowledge and to start working cases through ServiceNow." And then we forgot that, oh, we need to keep those knowledge articles updated. We didn't anticipate, that there's ongoing work. So knowing who's doing it, when they're doing it, how you're going to sustain it, are you reviewing things on a recurring basis? I think so having the project plan and then having the operational plan behind it is going to be helpful. Skills. Yeah, so there are a few certifications we would recommend that anyone get. You may or may not need all of these, but I would just say, the Human Resources Implementation Certification, the ServiceNow Administration Certification, and the Application Developer Certification, certainly for an HR admin, all three of these would be beneficial. For other roles, you may only need one, but I'm just, these are some core cases. Are some core certifications. There are more certifications out on Now Learning. I strongly suggest you go out there to see everything that's available. Deploy and manage. Yeah, so when I'm in an implementation, it's starting with my implementation in sub-production or a sub-production instance to test things out, make sure they're working, make sure everything is showing up the way I want it to, and even maybe soft launching in sub-prod with a few folks just to test things out, right? So give some employees some access, maybe work them through some use cases. Who gets access is critical. What roles are you going to assign and to whom? And then defining what is your minimum lovable product. I love this. I had a customer give me this description a few years ago. It's not about the minimum viable product. It's about the minimum lovable product, because if your employees don't love it, if they don't use it, it's not getting you the benefit that you're hoping for. So what is it that's really going to help? And then creating a management and operations plan we talked about, and a roadmap. What new capabilities, what future capabilities might help us, and that's kind of an ongoing piece of work there. So as we're wrapping up, I would just say go out to the community, look at all the Live on ServiceNow events. There are many of them. HRSD and other applications, so many events. Please, we hope they're going to provide a lot of value to you. I would definitely go to the Live on ServiceNow and look at what's upcoming and then what's already recorded that might help you as well. Use the community. We have product hubs for HR service delivery and employee center. Both of those are great resources. Go out to the community and you can see what's available. And again, for other products and applications, there are community product hubs as well. Uh, Additional implementation resources, we have our Customer Success Center. A lot of leading practices are documented there. Now Create provides some methodologies. We shared some of that earlier in this session. And then our HR service delivery webinars. This will not be the last one. We have another webinar coming up on Thursday morning in 2 days that might help you. It's called Case and Knowledge for HRSD, what, why, and how of deployment. Please join those other events. And as we're coming up to time here, I'll just say we also have our ServiceNow Impact team, our expert services team. We have training and certification. All of these are great resources. With that, I think we've been answering questions as we've gone along today. Hopefully, we've answered everyone's questions. If you have follow-ups, you can reach out on the community, and we're out there every day pretty much looking at the questions and trying to get as many answered as we can, hopefully all of them as we go. But we're engaged, and we hope you'll stay engaged as well. With that, I'd just like to say thank you from the ServiceNow team. We appreciate your time today, and we hope you have a wonderful day.